Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Might and Magic booth. I'm Gandhi alongside the guru. I call you the North American guru, Cryxious. How are you, my man?
I'm good. Yeah, guru is a little bit high up there, so I still have a little ways to go. I'm not to the 1500 ELOs, but representing NA, I'm definitely happy to be doing that.
I do love America, so I am definitely biased towards
America.
you. So you just actually had a very, very close match, even though you won 2-0. Tell me a little bit about that round of 8 match. Did you have a little bit of jitters in you at all?
That was a close match. I was going up against a Kelthor. And Kelthor is a stronghold champion.
Okay.
And he was actually playing a lot of high-powered creatures. So he was playing with Black Skull Warlord. He was playing with a lot of Tainted Orcs. And these guys, they have a lot of health.
Yeah.
So I have to be really tactical when it comes to how I'm going to play my spells, move my troops around on the board. And both games kind of had me on my toes where if he got control, he could pretty much wipe me out in a turn or two. So, I mean, it went into the mid and into the late game.
Well, that's actually basically the exact opposite of you, right? Because you try as a Haven player to litter the board as early as you can. So for him, does he not have too many cards out in the beginning, so you get early damage, and then he brings out his 8 health creature?
Well, so his curve to try and get his guys out, he's going to maximize. If he's doing it early on, he's probably going for a 6-1-1.
Okay.
And so that way he can try and get some of his really big creatures. Or, he might do a 4-2-1, depending if he gets some spells, because then he's able to deal with some of my guys. And one of the ways in which I thought about that in this deck creation is actually, getting to the mid game, getting to the long game means that I need to be able to handle that, and so I have to think about my moves, and so that's where I kind of switch back into my defensive mode.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like all hands on deck.
Yeah. So now, I noticed actually what we were talking about it. So you did have 2 fireballs in your possession there in that last game, but he moved his guys up, and if you guys don't know, a fireball, wherever you put it, it's going to do damage to your characters as well. So you actually had to kind of wait a couple turns. There was times I was like,
exactly.
Use the fireball, and then I forgot, it's going to do damage to you. So how do you deal with that, mentally? Are you just okay, if I shift down, I'm going to be okay, and you basically wait for him to respond?
So one of the ways to think about it is if I can bait him into moving into a better position, so that way I'm not going to take any damage with my guys. That's one way that I can do that. Another way to do it is acceptable losses. If I have one of the spells that I had out was a unique light spell that allowed me to get guys back from my graveyard. So every single turn, I'm getting not only am I drawing 1 card, but I'm getting a guy back from the graveyard. So that puts more troops back in my hand, and it's okay, now I can get them out there, and I can end up, trying to keep shellacking them.
Yeah.
But really, when you hold damage in your hand, you have that urge to try and do it all at one time, and you're kind of let me clear the board. But he was actually holding a lot of his creatures in hand too, and so it's kind of okay, I need to reserve some of those, and that goes back to card advantage, like Esper was saying. You don't want to give up too many cards, and there's no hand limit in Might Magic Duel of Champions, which as in other games, you might only have 7 or 8 or 10 cards. This one just keeps getting more and more, so that's one of the things to think about too.
Yeah, gotcha. So now, when it gets to the point, you do your traditional 3-4-1 on Haven, does it get to the point where you just say, okay, you know what, I'm just going to keep drawing cards here, I have all my spells out here, I don't need anything more than this? Are you just constantly going to be drawing cards then?
So here's one of my secrets that I do. I actually, if I'm set up at 3-3-1, until I absolutely need to use that fireball, I'll switch over and just do a card drawing mechanic. Because there's no need for me to go ahead and do that until the threat's in play.
Gotcha.
So drawing cards, you get one at the beginning of your turn, you get one whenever you want to be able to use that ability if you've already kind of maxed yourself out, and it's only when I see that I need to use that fireball or some other kind of spell with a requirement of 4.
Very interesting.
So those are the nuances of testing your deck over and over and over again. You're going to be able to find those ways in which you can be thinking about this situation and how I can think about all the different outcomes, kind of like chess, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So now tell me a little bit about events here, because for me personally, when I play this game, I'm I forget about them. Do they make a big role here on the competitive scene?
I think they have. In the past, we just recently had a patch that kind of looked at, how magic creatures would get a +1. So there were a lot of people looking at a certain faction, Necro.
Yeah, Necro.
And they actually had, one of the decks that was set up with them, the hero was Nurgle. He was playing a lot of different creatures that had magic in it, and so they would be buffed up. And so you would get a very quick rush attack.
Gotcha.
So, the developers of the game looked at this and they said, we need to kind of balance this out. So what they decided was, instead of this being a passive event where the +1 is always in play, they made it an activate ability. So now the actual player has to decide, the event's there. I have to pay the one resource to actually get it due. Whether or not, I think some of the community still split whether or not that was the right thing to do. But as players, you have to deal with the changes that go on, right?
Yeah.
So to me, I think when you get back and you kind of look at the balance issues that come up in any kind of game,
it's always
you kind of just have to grin and bear it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's why one faction that seems to be low in people using it right now might get a boost with the next expansion or the next patch. So it's one of the things to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that all the time and time again for like StarCraft and League of Legends with character balancing issues. It's a never-ending battle. There's always going to be one who's slightly has an advantage, but even that little bit of advantage, it's only going to come down to if you're actually skilled with that faction or race or champion. And then, you may have to take a hit and switch it up. But so do you actually use any other decks besides the Haven, or is it strictly Haven?
I do. I've actually dabbled a little bit in Necro and Inferno. I'd like to get more into Sanctuary, but I'm holding off until this next expansion.
Gotcha.
Because I think that they're going to kind of get... I have a feeling that they're going to buff them up because, they were the first, one to come out that actually, hey, here's a new faction.
Yeah.
But to me, they feel just a touch on the slow side. And,
I see that.
The way that this game is kind of set up, you're having games that happen within 3 to 5 to 7 to 10 minutes. And if you're playing Sanctuary, there's only one hero that necessarily kind of plays that. Now, I'm interested in this new faction that's going to be coming out. So
I don't know what it is. Apparently, there's
there is something here. You might want to check out my Twitter account. I might have posted a picture about that somewhere. That's right, at Cryxious. So that'll give you some idea about what's going on out there. But I like the different heroes that Haven has. But they're kind of like the first ones that I started out with, so they're like my baby. So I kind of feel like that. But to be a better player, you need to play other decks.
Yeah.
So you kind of think about how the other player does, right? Take it to other games like StarCraft too.
Yeah.
Right. You got your Protoss, but yet at the same time, I might need to play a couple of games of Terrans and Zergs and be like, okay, I need to understand how that 6-minute pool is going to come in and rush me.
Makes very, very good sense.
And then how can I defend against that?
Yeah. Now, so let me ask you this. Now, so is Haven, you have a lot of creatures out there, and obviously the Stronghold gave you a little bit of trouble here. Are you going to is it going to get to the point where you're actually going to have two different factions to battle? Like, let's say someone's like really good with Necro, and Necro's weak against one. Are you going to get to the point where you actually have to learn that faction where they're weak against?
I think that's definitely a possibility, right? The way that I think the current tournament schedule is set up, like you wouldn't be able to change your deck.
Yeah.
But whether or not there may be a time in which you can sideboard in or out cards or different things like that to change, that's nothing that's been made official or anything like that. I think I really have to see what's going on the scene because I watch a lot of other streamers that are in Europe.
Okay.
And they're the ones that, whereas my ELO is like mid-1200s, almost 1300, and it's taken me a while to get up there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that are at 1500, and they're top dogs.
Yeah, they're big.
In my opinion, it's like knowing what's going on there, understanding the scene, gives me an eye into the metagame. And so that's where I can say, you know what, after a while, I think Alia, my Haven champion, she might go out of flavor.
Gotcha.
But then I got to be able to react and keep it going.
Gotcha. So now let me ask you this. So, there's always been a decent debate here amongst, first-person shooters and a couple other different esport games. For this game, can you get better just watching, basically visually watching streams? Is that just as beneficial as playing the game?
I think so because one of the ways in which you're gonna understand initially how people are gonna be setting up their creatures and being deployed. You're also going to look at why are people keeping certain cards in their hand, and depending on the style of decks that are out there, there's different kinds of decks. Like there's a one-turn kill deck where you basically is a very slow deck, but it waits to a certain point to where it can do 18, 20 different points of damage to the hero.
I still don't get that.
It seems a little bit punishing to the player, but a deck that wins is a deck that wins, and that happens.
Yeah,
that's why you have a 6-minute Zerg Rush in StarCraft 2. It works.
Yeah.
Now, to the flip side of that is, when you're watching people as they actually stream, one of the things that I try to do is I try to talk about my mentality while I'm going through these things. And a stream of consciousness is good for the not only the streamers, but you get the viewers to interact with you too. And sometimes they'll, well, why don't you do this? Or why don't you actually play this card? And so that allows you to kind of get their inside. You create that communication. You're bonding with people in there. And it's a good deal because, I've had people help test with my deck, right? And that's because they were watching my stream and they helped me out.
Nice. Well, so looking forward here, you're in the top 4.
In the top 4, that's a good spot. You know, a little bit of the shakes there because I was kind of on the ropes, but you know, hashtag Fireball, everybody.
The Fireball, you guys are going to see it. He gets them all the time. It's just, I don't know if it's luck or what it is, but you get them.
The top deck skills, you know, sometimes it just happens and you got to roll the punches.
It does. So looking forward here. Who are you? Are you excited to play anyone here?
You know, there's a guy that I heard by the name of Shredder.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I don't know, but that might be a nice nemesis match right there. So we'll see. I don't know if that'll be the finals. We'll see how it goes. But, you know, I got to represent Haven.
You do?
So definitely.
Yeah. So coming up next, you are going to be coaching a complete novice?
This is going to be an interesting setup. I have to battle for some ice cream. So, you know, and I don't know if you guys understand. Well, you know, we got to keep it nice. You know, keep it nice. I mean, it could be for other things. But, you know, Emil is being a developer on the game for quite a while. He knows all the ins and outs of the cards.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping.
I watched him lose, though.
I think he could have some weak spots.
He could.
You know? So my idea is, and you see, look at him. He's probably getting some knowledge over there right now.
Yep.
He's saying, you know, when I tell you to do this, you do what I say.
Yep.
But for me, I'm gonna do the coaching. You know, I can't play the game for him. I can only coach him the best the way that it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, coming up next here, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. When you come back, it's basically going to be a complete learning experience with the North American Guru, as I coined him, Cryxious. Make sure to follow him on Twitter and to watch his stream. So, guys, stay tuned. Cryxious, as always, a pleasure, my man.
Thank you very much.
I'm Chase Strait, representing Duel of Champions at Kubla Khan. This weekend we're kicking off our Road to Paris International Tournament, where we're sending 8 finalists to Paris to crown a grand champion. The winner of this tournament is going to face 3 other live tournament winners for that spot to Paris, but if you can't make it to one of these, you can go to duelofchampions.com to download the game and get more info on how you can join in on the battleground.
1, 2, 3.
It's very exciting seeing all these new games. Duel of Champions, really fun game. After a few minutes, I understood really simple and quite addicting as well.
I like the fact that it's a free-to-play model. It's something that's really popular right now, and I think they're doing it the right way.
It is very playable. It is very colorful. It is engaging.
The reason I'd recommend this is because the game is really easy to play. It's really fast-paced.
And I can't wait to play online, because then I can start playing against people around the world and see how they think and what their strategies are, too.
Oh, it's really a streamlined game. There's a lot of complexity to the cards, so they can add dynamics that you don't see in like Magic the Gathering and other similar games.
When I was playing against my second opponent, he had filled his board out against mine. We were tied in life points, and then I fireballed half of his board away, and that pretty much won me the match.
My strategy is small creatures and big spells, and just kind of try to survive until later, and then I take control of the game.
All right, ready?
Ready for this, Julian?
All right, good luck.
Last night, I modified my deck to attack anywhere or do sweep or charge moves so that I could just empty the battlefield no matter where I put my creatures.
The strategy was to follow just the same lines of the faction, which was just defensive spells and healing spells, just to outlast the other opponent.
I ended up drawing a card that did 2 damage to all his creatures and kind of wiped most of his board at that point and won the game.
All right, gentlemen, any last words before we get this started?
I just want to say personally, I don't know if I'm more excited about me winning or you losing.
He started the trash talk already.
The third game was a little closer than I wanted it to be, but I finally pulled it out and got the sweep. I'm pretty excited to go over there and represent the United States and get a free trip to Paris and hopefully do well.
So now you got a few months before your next competition in Road to Paris. What are you going to do to prepare?
I'm just going to play test online. Like I mentioned earlier, I'll go in there and play with the Europeans. They have a pretty good developed metagame, and I'll just do my best to get ready.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. You played well, and we'll see you again in September.
With a practice duel, and my friend, what is your name again?
Jake Stephanie.
Jake, excellent. I'm Cryxious, definitely. So we're going to be getting our Inferno deck to be used against Emil here, and this is for ice cream here. So this is serious things that we have going on. So we've already got the challenge set up over here. So let's go ahead and hit click when ready. So we're going in, and good luck to you over there. So looking at this, we basically have 6 cards in hand. We want to figure out, what do we want to do with our starting hand. The biggest thing to remember when you first look at this is that you need to say, okay, do I have some removal, which I do with Firebolt, and I've got a lot of decent good creatures to start off. So this looks to be like a pretty good hand. So let's hit yes. And you usually have 30 seconds to kind of decide that, so they're going to be doing the same thing. Now, your opponent's playing Cassandra. Cassandra's a little bit of a defensive setup. They're Haven. There's some good stuff. So they're going to be looking to try and counter what we're going to do. So we're going to be doing some early rush. So we start off first. That first thing that you want to do, what I generally do, is I go ahead and I click on my hero, and then I need to decide what I'm going to increase. A lot of my guys have 2s and 3s up here in the might, so I want to go ahead and increase might. And now I only have 1 resource, so the only thing that I could play would be the Firebolt, but I don't have magic set up, so that's all I'm doing on my first turn. Hit and turn, we're good to go. This will allow us to kind of look a little bit more into our cards, though, and what we can see here is if you kind of go over them, this little area down here will kind of give you some of the stats, the resources that it costs to play. So, our Juggernaut's a big guy. When he gets out, he's a 4/4 guy. So, he's got our highest attack, he's got our highest defense at the moment, so eventually we want to get him out and have them deal with that. Exactly. So, watching him, his advantage is he goes up to 2, but then he's actually going to have 2 resources, so he's going to be able to try and figure out, okay, well, he may get a creature out here. But, coming back and looking over here at our guys, if at any time you want to look at what's in your hand, right-click, it brings it up, and then we can do that, and then you can right-click again to put them back. So we have 2 different rows here. We have a front line, and we have a back line. Now this front line is going to be where you play your melee guys. Your back line is going to be where you play your shooters. Now you also have flyers. Flyers can be front or back, so you move them around right now. So again, let's go ahead and click on Garant here. It's the Seeker of Discord. And seeing what we have over here, we want to get out a creature and play. So, I think one of the best things that we can do right now is we're going to go ahead and put out, well, first let's go ahead and up our might. Because, with this, now that we have 3, we can play up to all of our creatures. Not right now, but it gives us our setup for what's going on. And we know that the taxman over there is not going to be able to attack at this moment. So let's go ahead and bring out one of our creatures over here. Choose one of your 2-cost creatures. Now the Rogue Mercenary, I would hold off on that just because in order for him to attack, you need to pay resources for him. So maybe the Demented would be good. And then let's go ahead and put the Demented on a lane that's not where the taxman is. And so now that we've got him set up, we spent all of our resources, we're looking good. He doesn't have any attackers out there for next turn immediately, so let's go ahead and hit end turn. Now, quickly, let's look over here at, these are events down here at the bottom, and what the events are going to do is they're going to allow you to have different options. Some of them are passive events, some of them are active events. These are activatable events. I think I made up that word right there, but I'm not sure. But you have, it's 2 resources, but each player draws a card. So this is an event where you have to decide, do I want to give my opponent a card when I draw a card? Right. So later on, when you get into thinking about your deck building skills, this is an idea of, okay, it's a help, but it could hurt me too down the road.
Do we build on the event cards?
Right. So in your deck, what you're going to have is you have your hero, you have 8 event cards, and then you have, that's a total of 9, and then you have 50 other cards. You want to stay around 59 for a competitive deck.
Yeah, okay.
So now looking over here, let's check out our spells real quick. We have a Dispel Magic, which means if he has any ongoing effect or he plays something on any of our creatures, we're going to be able to take care of that, so that's good. And then we also have that 1 removal spell, but it's only going to be taking out, a creature of 2 or less. So we're going to hold on to that until we absolutely positively. Okay. Now the one thing to remember here is his taxman is going to give him 1 more resources every single turn. So that means he may be able to get his engine going and getting more cards out onto the battlefield, and then we'll have to deal with that. Okay. Yes. So the Sea Archer, no one can trust. Well, let's talk about immune to retaliation. So that's an interesting point. So scroll over there you go. So immune to retaliation means that when you attack, your creatures have an attack number, they have a retaliation number, and then they have a health number. So unless that says immune to retaliation, let's say if you were to attack this lesser elemental, you would take 2 damage. But she doesn't suffer from that. Right? So she would not take any retaliation damage, even though our guy doesn't have any to do that. So that is correct. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to decide, since she has a health of 3, we might want to use that firebolt to go ahead and hit her and then attack with our creature. But before we do that, let's also go back to Garant.
Right.
We still just only have 1 in spells that's needed. We haven't gotten any fortune cards that are going on right now. So let's go ahead and hit that might.
Okay.
And now that we've got 3, we can come back and play a 2. But let's play our firebolt first.
There it is. All
And now it's going to ask you to target. Now, you could target your own creature. Don't do that. That's right. So let's go ahead and target the Sea Archer. And then we'll go ahead and now we'll go ahead and attack.
So I click.
Click it once, and then it will tell you to attack. If we wanted to move from a lane, if we didn't want to get attacked in return, then we would go ahead and do that. But right now, we want to eliminate this threat.
Okay, so attack. All right.
So now coming back and looking at the way that Inferno is, we've got 30 seconds left, so we want to put another guy out there. Let's go ahead and put out the Breeder, because he's going to allow us to do some good stuff. And in the back row, actually, yeah, let's do that. So maybe he'll have to move his Taxman around. Now, right-click, go ahead and hit Done there at the very top.
Oh.
There we go. The countdown timer right there. Right. So let's look at the Breeder real quick. Right-click. So what we have is we have a 1 strength, 0 retaliation, 2 health. But not only is the Breeder immune to retaliation, Magic Channel 1 allows you to have a +1 in your spell level as long as the Breeder's in play. So right now you have a technical spell level of 2. So go ahead and right-click to go ahead and come out of there, and we'll see what he's got. And we can also, let's briefly look at Garant again. Now, for 1 mana, excuse me, I keep mixing them up. 1 resources, you're going to draw a card. So when we get to a certain point that we feel that we're good in all of our stats, we want to come back and we need to think about, okay, how do I make sure I have plenty of cards that I can draw? So we can go ahead and right-click out here. We've got, all right. That was 3 damage. All right, that's fine. And he's going to go ahead. So he had a total of 5 resources, so he was able to eliminate one of ours, bring out some of the Haven. All right, so we're going to have to answer that. Now, I think it's time for us to bring out our big gun.
Oh, the Joker.
I think so. So we'll have to think about that next turn, depending on what we draw. Otherwise, we may go ahead and just bring out some of our other guys. Now, one of the other creatures that you drew here, the Lesser Air Elemental, 4 might, 1 magic. He's actually a pretty good creature, because if you click on him real quick, we'll see that he's 2/2/6. He's a flyer, and he can go anywhere, but he's also magic. So that means there may be certain event cards that come along that actually, affect him, give him +1, -1, things like that. Oh, what is this? Is that a fireball? I think, did Gandhi just go ahead and come in here and try and give us a fireball? Well, we don't have magic set up for that yet, but let's go ahead and up our magic 1 more. Correct? Correct. There we go. So down the road, we'll have something that we want to threaten with him with.
Oh, yeah.
But we have 4. So technically, we could play defensively, but we could also go ahead and set up a row, or a lane of a rogue mercenary and the POW hunter.
Oh, I can summon 2 of them.
But we don't want to put them where the Sun Lancer is, right? Because this row right there, that would be, defensive. We want to make him either A, move to deal with us, or to make him say, okay, I might just have to take that damage. So let's go ahead, and the rogue mercenary will go, so we'll put him, and then the POW hunter. There you go. So now we also have an opening up top where the Breeder has nobody blocking him. So let's get some damage going on and click on the Breeder. And then you can click on the hero. And we've drawn first blood. All right. We don't get any extras for that, but it's a good thing. Let them know we're not playing around. Nope, because you just deployed them unless they have a special ability to do that. So we're good? All right. So you kind of feel like you're starting to get a little bit of grasp of what's going on here? Okay, but definitely don't worry. That's what I'm here for. Coach Cryxious is in your corner. All right, so let's see. What do we have over here? He has 6 cards in hand. We have 5 cards in hand. So, still pretty even. We have enough to where if next turn we needed to cast the fireball, we could.
Right.
So it's something to think about. That's one of our options that's there. Right. Now, the big thing about Fireball is right-click on it real quick, it hits all adjacent creatures. So it can hit even your side. So it's a cross.
Oh, okay.
So that means it focuses on the center and then hits all adjacent around there.
So it's like an area effect.
It is. And so that can be really deadly. That can be really, really deadly. Uh-oh, Radiant Glory. I know them. They're magic flyers. And they've got some definite damage that's going on there. So not only do we have to watch out for her with her strength of 3, but her retaliation is 2. Now our POW Hunter, he's immune to retaliation, but he's only going to be able to do 1. He's kind of weak, so he kind of nullified what we have going on in that lane right now. Now he's also thinking about dropping down the Loyal Griffin. Yeah, so right over here.
Oh, I see it.
Exactly. So he's trying to decide where he wants to set that up. He could go ahead and set it up in the lane down there, but he's choosing not to. All right. This actually kind of works out well for us in one sense. Ah, yeah. So he came over, gave us a little scratch over there. We're not bleeding too bad from that.
Right.
And he's counting down over there. And now he has 4 cards in hand, so we're still in a pretty good setup. Exactly. A windshield, half damage from shooter creatures. That's all right. So, sometimes when you're thinking about your turns, you only have like so long, so you want to make sure that you kind of think about that. So he didn't cast that spell, and it may be a good thing that he didn't do that, but that's all right. Okay. So first things first, we've got the fireball, but we don't want to do that. So what do you think we want to do? We want to go ahead and get our magic up to 1 more?
I say just in case, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good idea. So we'll go ahead and increase up to there. Now, we know that if we cast that fireball, that's going to take a majority of our resources, but we could focus the target on the taxman, take out the griffin up top, and heavily damage that guy down there. So, think that's a good idea? All right. So let's go ahead and hit that fireball. And then we're going to go ahead and focus. Now, see, that's where it shows you the area of effect. So, when you're getting ready to cast spells, you can go through and you can, not necessarily play the spell, because you can always come back and X out if you change your mind. Right. So go ahead and we'll make that taxman pay. Wow. All right. So there's a lot of damage going on there. Now, our POW Hunter down here, you know what? He's immune to retaliation. So have him go ahead and do a quick slash on the Radiant Glory there. There you go. We're going to go ahead and we're going to leave the rogue mercenary. He's going to kind of be a meat shield. We don't have to pay his cost. Now that breeder up top, what do we want to do with him? That is correct. There we go. And I think that we are done for our turn. We'll look at our cards. Nothing that we can play. We've still got some time left. So let's go ahead and hit end turn. Now, Flyer's the biggest threat. And so, what he could do is he could move into that lane with the Sunrider. Right now, he technically doesn't have a way to heal the Sunrider. But in the Cassandra starting deck, you do have a healing spell that you can use. So that's something to think about. So we might not necessarily want to let a wounded creature always stay on the battlefield. Because if he's on the battlefield, then that means he can, A, do more damage to us. B, he could get healed and then end up continuing being a long-term threat.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa. That's uncalled for. That's uncalled for. All right. So they just took out this lane over here. That wasn't very nice. All right. But that's okay. He had to spend a pretty big spell on that over there. And we're at 5 resources, so we should be getting up to 6 next turn, which means we might be able to play some of our guys over here. This will be interesting. Now, right-click over here on this. Yes. Now, this is one of the spells, or excuse me, a fortune, that when you play this, it will immediately increase one of your Might, Magic, or Destiny more. Some of these cards are in here in the starter decks. They help you get up to your arc a little bit quickly. Right. So right-click out of here. It's our turn. We got another one. All right. Well, we don't want to necessarily move the breeder or anything like that right now. So let's go ahead and have the breeder do a quick attack.
Oh, should I increase?
Well, I don't think we should, just because we want to get out some of our other creatures, right? But, you know, we let's go ahead and get out our Juggernaut. And let's go ahead and set up the Juggernaut right there, because I think that'll be a good center spot. And then, actually, let's go ahead and get our Griffin. And let's put our Griffin next to the Juggernaut, but not there. We want to be, yeah. So exactly. And then we've already cast all of our, or we used all of our resources. So actually, let's go ahead and go up here and increase our might, just in case we happen to have something that's up that big. We're good to go. Let's hit end turn and kind of move on. Now we're going to be taking some damage from that Radiant Glory down there, so that's going to hurt. But I think we'll have to deal with that in a second, and maybe that Glory will have to move up to deal with a Juggernaut, because I mean, he's a pretty big guy. You know, a couple of turns with him. Oh. All right, so this Cyclone up here, what this does is it not only does damage, but it immobilizes our creatures, so we're not able to attack.
Okay, is that an ongoing spell?
It's an ongoing spell. You could, if we had something going on there, so if we want to go ahead and do that in order to have the Juggernaut attack, we can. But we did lose our threat down here on the Sunrider, so we'll have to consider what we want to do with that when it gets to our turn. Now our Breeder's up top, you know, again, kind of keeping him out of the way, because exactly. And now that our magic is high enough to where if we lost him, we would drop to 3, but still, if we get another Fireball, we can still cast him, no problem. Now, there's going to be certain times when you get cards in your deck that are in your hand that may not necessarily do too much. So for right now, we want to hold on to these Dragon Veins, but when we get the ability to use one of these events to trade out a card, to maybe draw a new card, that's going to be one of the cards that we sacrifice, because right now I don't think he's necessarily going to be helping us. All right, so it looks like there's a Sea Elf Archer. They got brought out. That's no good. So, okay, we've got a couple of different things that we want to do here. So first things first, let's look at the Dispel Magic. I think if we want to go ahead and take care of that Archer, well, yeah, so we do that, and we target, yep. And as you see, it takes out everything that was affecting that row. So now if we had more creatures, we'd be good to go. Juggernaut definitely doesn't want to wait around, so let's go ahead and have the Juggernaut kill the Sea Elf. Let's have the Breeder up top go ahead and kind of, you know, because you want to keep the pressure on, you know, and obviously he's able to come back and deal with us too. So we have a couple of creatures down here. So one of the things, yeah, we'll do the Elemental down on the bottom lane. Let's do up front. And then what we can do here is bring in the Succubus on the back over here. And then, again, you know, we used all of our resources, so we couldn't necessarily draw a card yet. We're kind of starting to get into the mid-game here. So now we'll go ahead and go here. Let's increase magic just in case the Breeder gets killed. So that way we would still be at 4 and we could use a Fireball. So we're good to go. Yep.
Are these both events that I can use?
That is correct. And so both of these events right here, they cost. Yep. So that one, we didn't necessarily want to use them last turn because we wanted to get more threats out onto the board.
Right.
And actually, you know, one of the ways when you think about playing this game competitively is you want your opponent to not dictate how the game flow is to you. You want to control the battlefield. So we have a lot of creatures out on the battlefield. He has to decide exactly how he wants to deal with that. Now, there's an ebb and flow because obviously, as you can see, certain creatures that have a higher strength or certain spell removals, you know, that can come in and do damage. Some of them, you know, immobilize, so your guys can't move, but, you know, they can be under attack for quite a bit. So I think hopefully what we can do is we get another luck event, and then we can maybe trade that out for one of, yeah, because these Dragon Veins aren't necessarily doing any good for us. Right. And then what we can also do is we can spend 1 resource on Garant and draw a card in case we don't necessarily like what we draw. but he doesn't necessarily know we have 2 Dragon Veins in hand. So, this is going to be one of those things where, sometimes, like, for example, in Magic, you might hold on to a mana card in your hand to let the other player think that you've got something. So it could be a creature, it could be removal. So you got to have a little bit of a bluffing ability there too. And he can't necessarily see, what's there. So, it's a good call. Oh, he's trying to answer with a lesser air elemental. He's going to do that up top. Oh, and another cyclone. A lot of damage down there. Well, not a lot of damage, excuse me, but he immobilized. Yep, he mobilized. So Radiant Glory comes in there, but what we were able to do is our retaliation went off, so she took some damage. All right. Oh, this is a good guy. He looks kind of mean, right? Click on him real quick. This is the Pit Fiend. And what the Pit Fiend does is he has the ability to attack anywhere. So we can put him wherever we want, and he can go anywhere. Now, he's melee, so that means he'll have to be in that front row. So let's go ahead and right-click out here. He can, as long as there's not anything immediately blocking him. This creature can only attack the enemy hero if there's no creature in front of it, right? So we don't necessarily want to cast him yet because, let's go ahead and hit the X to cancel out. We want to draw a card, remember? So we don't want to use the events.
Oh, use his ability.
Exactly. Because now this is going to look at, and look at what we got right there. This is perfect. This is perfect. So we, number one, want to use that on who do you think? Yes, the Radiant Glory needs to go down. Inferno has no time to waste. Boom. There we go. Now we can't attack with that air elemental, but we've removed that threat. That Succubus right there. Let's go ahead and take out that Sunrider. Boom. All right. That's no problem. We can't move our yep.
I can't attack.
That's right. And then that Pit Fiend. The Pit Fiend, let's go ahead and bring him. Where do you think?
Say here. But I could go there as well.
And if you put him up there, then that means eventually that whole lane will have to be dealt with.
Right.
But, he's only got 1 card in hand. So that sounds good. Let's do that. And then let's not hit celebrations, because if we do that, then we're going to give them a card. So let's go ahead and hit end turn.
All right. So that's destroyed.
Right. So, right now we've established some creature advantage in multiple lanes of what's going on here. And he's having to do the same thing. He's trying to get cards into his hand to try and deal with it. So this goes into exactly what we were talking about, right? Our top deck skills got us that Firebolt, so we removed a threat. We didn't, allow anything to happen. And the Cyclone actually only stays around for 1 turn. It's not a constantly ongoing spell. So we're in a pretty good spot. Chances are he may take out our Juggernaut.
Yeah.
But we've got a couple of different threats that are going on around here.
Right.
How are you feeling at this point in the game? You thinking you're in a pretty good idea?
I'm thinking so. I just started, so.
Oh, definitely,
sure.
definitely. But you got, when you have more troops on the field, that's definitely means that you're pressing the advantage, and that's one of the things to think about. In a competitive card game, unless you necessarily have a way in which you're going to win with minimal creatures, this game, Duel of Champions, is all about putting out some creatures for sure.
Oh yeah. Okay, so
he killed the Juggernaut. That's no problem. But he's going to bring out a healer, and this is the Devoted Sister.
Okay.
So this could be a little bit of a pain. All right.
Okay, so question is.
Yes, we will use that, but what do we want to do first?
Draw.
Exactly. So drawing a card first. Okay, now that is a special fortune that allows us to do direct damage to the enemy hero. We want to hold off on doing that immediately. We want to save that maybe for the killing blow. So we'll see about that. We have, of course, our guys up top.
Right.
So where do you think that you want to attack with this Pit Lord?
This Pit Lord, well, he deals 3 damage, right?
That's correct.
So I could immediately kill either this guy or this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure exactly what the healer does.
Well, the healer with heal 2 means that she would be able to heal 2 points of damage every single round.
Right, okay.
So we could not worry about that lesser air elemental right up there, and we could go ahead and take that out. That's a good idea. Mm-hmm. Okay. And now with our breeder up top, let's go ahead and attack our Griffin there. That's good. And let's go ahead and now use our event to discard one of the Dragon Veins. There we go. Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
And so now let's bring our Maniac. Let's bring our Maniac next to the Succubus. Mm-hmm. And then let's go ahead and bring our POW Hunter. Do we want to use him as a blocker, or do we want to keep a strong lane? I think we want to do a strong lane. There you go. And now we don't necessarily want to attack with the air elemental because there's 2 retaliation coming on over here. So he may end up dying. But let's attack. Yep, attack there. And let's end our turn.
Yeah, very good.
Good deal, good deal. Now, the thing to remember with Altar of Destruction over here is that you have to take a card from your hand and put it face down on top of your library to deal that 2 damage. So now we have a reason to keep Dragon Vein in hand, because even though it's kind of a dead card, now it's actually got a use for it. So, we're in a little bit of a waiting game here because we want to see exactly what he's doing. Unless he's got, something to deal with our Pit Lord, or a Pit Fiend, we have a pretty good advantage as far as how we're going to move with that. And we need to be thinking about how we want to handle the lesser air elemental because he's got 6 health.
Yeah, so when you start doing damage.
Exactly. So he's going to be discarding to draw another card. And maybe that might be something, that he can use against us. But we've got 3 strong lanes.
Right.
And chances are that bottom lane of ours is going to, we're probably going to lose that air elemental. But, in times of battle, have to have acceptable losses. That's for sure. Now, if you ever have any questions as far as what the other creatures are on the battlefield, you can do the same thing that you do on your creatures, which is you mouse over them and right-click. And that'll go over. Mm-hmm. You can even look at the graveyard too. So use your scroll wheel to go through there. And this is good to do whenever you think, okay, somebody might have played a unique card, but exactly. Or if they have 2 or 3 of a certain type, then you want to be able to think about it and say, okay, how many have they played?
Right.
As you get more involved with the game, you start thinking competitively, okay, what is this deck really about?
Oh, so he's gone.
Yep, and he played another Sunrider, which is something that we'll have to deal with.
Oh, where is this? Oh.
Right down here. Yeah, there.
Nope.
So John. I'm not sure. I don't know if it was VSync. Could it possibly be when the time runs out after so many times that it automatically does a victory? We have a victory. Oh, well, let me tell you, Brass the Lord, I believe we have taken the first game here at Twin. Okay, and actually, I'm getting the idea that I believe SpaceElephant is going to owe me some ice cream. So let me tell you, thank you very much for playing. Brass Lord, I think you've got some good tutelage. Come check me out on my Twitch channel, and I can definitely do some more teaching and answer any questions for you for sure. But let me